The last line. Rabbi Yehuda Shadalei Kurbana. Rabbi Yehuda had sent a matana lavidan of Yemedam to the Goy Avidana on his chagah, on his holiday. Even though we know it's us to send a matana to a Goy on his holiday, he explained. He said, I know that this guy doesn't worship idols, and therefore, even though without a cloud it's forbidden to give a matana to a guy on such a day, but the story, the case of Abidarna, you're allowed because no, he doesn't serve idols. Amalei Av Yisrael had said back to Av Yehuda B'Atan, but we learned in the Braisa, Geiteshav. What is a Geiteshav? Kol Shekibel Allah B'Nfnei Shleish Chaverim Shalei La'avit Avit Yechavim. Anybody, any goy that had accepted him from the three Talmidei Chachamim not to serve idols, but we know Abidarna didn't accept upon himself in front of three Talmidei Chachamim not to serve idols. So how could you say that you're allowed to give him a matana on the day of the holiday? I mean, you want to keep on when do we learn that Braisa that it has to be done in front of three Talmidei Chachamim? Negaya to what do we learn that? Lach to sustain it. That it's a chiyuv upon Yidden to sustain a gay teisha. What is a gay teisha? Only such a guy who accepts upon himself not to serve Avoda zara in front of three Talmidei Chachamim. Thank you, Mother. Rabbi Chana said the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Gay teisha Abdulahem Allah Shnei Asr Chayis Play Mal. A gay teisha that had had been over 12 months had passed and he didn't circumcise himself. It's meaning that he didn't convert. So he's just like any guy, and just like any guy, the din should be that it's forbidden to send a matana on the day of their chagah. So how was Rabbi Yehuda allowed to send this guy Avidarna a matana? And if you want to ask him, there by Avidarna is talking about that he accepted upon himself to circumcise himself, meaning to become a gay. And he didn't do so. So he's not considered as the min, as part of the goyim, and therefore you're allowed. Rabbi Yehuda was allowed to send him a matana on the day of the chagah. Rava amtalei kurbana. Rava, similar story. Rava had brought a gift to a certain goy whose name was Lavash Sheshach. He brought it on the day of the chagah, on the holiday. He said an explanation. The reason why I was allowed to do it, I know that he doesn't serve any, worship any idols. Also, the Rava went and found Bashesha sitting in the bathhouse, covered up to his neck with rose petals. The kind of Zionist come up, and naked harlots or whores were standing before him. So Bashesha said to Rava, do you have such pleasures that in the world to come? So Rava said to him, ours, meaning our pleasures, which we will receive in Olam Haba, is going to be of a greater amount. Of a greater pleasure. Amalei Bashesha said back, is there more pleasure than this? Amalei, so Rabbi said to him, Asun ika alaycha imsa de malchusa. You have fear of the king upon yourself. And not like alon imsa de malchusa. But we, in the world to come, will not have the fear of Melucha upon us. Amalei, so Bashesha replied to him, Anom, here, my aim is the malchusa, you can lie. But what kind of fear do I have from the Melucha upon myself? Ad Yosef, as they were sitting, Asahu Pristaka the Malka, this shliach from the Melech had came. Amalei kum, the Kabbalah Malka. And he said, the shliach said to Bashesha, get up, for your king needs you. So Bashesha was impressed that from a normal sikha, a noble conversation with a Talmud Chacham, and they wish to fulfill immediately what he said. Because of that, when Bashesh was going out, he said to Rabbi as a praise, the eye that wishes to see evil upon you, Yidden, let the eye be taken out of his socket. Rabbi answered, Amen. Immediately, the eye of Basheshach was taken out of his socket. And the reason is, the Pashim explained, because Basheshach Takim meant to praise him, but Basheshach was sort of blessing that the Yidden should have that kind of pleasure like he had, which is very degrading, because that's not the type of pleasure that we're referring to, the Rabbi was referring to in Eilam Haba. The Rabbi should have answered from the following pasuk to bring out the pleasures, the reward that the Eibishter will give in the world to come. It says the daughters of the kings will honor you. The queen will stand on your right side. In jewelry or with Eifer gold, African gold. So now verses, you are being served by whores, low down women, and us, the Yidden in the future, will be served by the daughters of Malachim. You should have brought an ayah from here about the great reward that we will have in the Olam Haba. It says, no eye except Hashem has seen that which that he will do for those that are waiting for him. Nobody will know about it till the time comes. Only Hashem. That's it. So here we see that we're talking about a tremendous tainug way beyond Basheshech's, but it was a ruchnizdike one. We learned in the Mishnah, if the guy hired a worker to do malacha acheres, to do a mutadik malacha, but in the midst he told him, I want you to transport or move a barrel of yain nesef from one place to another, and he did so. Nevertheless, we say the earnings are mutabana. Even though the guy didn't say to the worker to do the malacha with yain nesef, he didn't say, I want you to do it towards the evening, meaning after the day of work, even though he didn't say that. Says the Gemara, so, meaning it doesn't matter, even during the day of work, he told him to transport it, he could have a na from the wages. We have a stira. We learned in the following braysa, a guy who hires a Jewish worker to do for him malach, which is mutter, and at the end of the day of work, the Balabai says to the worker, to the Yisrael worker, move this barrel of yain nesef from one place to another. Schari mutter. His schar is mutter because he told him to do this after the day of work. Meaning the earnings that he got had nothing to do with after the day of work. That he asked him as a favor. So it's mashma taima, the whole reason why the earnings of the day is mutabana, because the time that he asked him to transport the barrel of yain nesef was after the day of work. So only in such a case, the earnings he could keep. But if he were to ask him to do work, that type of work for him, isidika work, transporting the chavis of yain nesef from one place to another, during the time that he's getting wages for it, loy. The schar wouldn't be, his earnings wouldn't be mutter. And we just said from our Mishnah that even if it's during the day of work, the schar is mutter. Our Mishnah that says that the earnings are mutter, the amali tusi out of tanam. We're saying that our Mishnah is referring dafka if he told him after the day of work to transport the chavas yain from one place to another. Rabbi Amalei Kasher. Rabbi gives a different answer. It's not a Kasher. Here he told him, I'm giving you 100 prutis, but you have to transport 100 chavias from one place to another. So the deal is, you only get the 100 prutis only after you transport 100 chavias. But amongst the 100, there was one that was yayin nesach. So therefore, it's asmana, because the whole 99 is dependent on the 100th one, and since the 100th one was yayin nesach, he can. That's what completes the job, and the yayin nesach is asmana. So therefore, he cannot have enough from this whole thing. And in the Bryce that said that he could keep the earnings is talking about, our Mishnah that says he can keep the earnings because he told him each chavis that you will transport, I'll give you a pruta. So he collects all the 99 prutas except for the 100th one, which was yayin nesach, that he cannot collect for. And the Gemara brings an ayah, time we learned on rice, one who hires a worker, I'm giving you 100 prutas for transporting 100 chavias. And we find amongst them that there was a chavish yayin nesach. Schari all his earnings are forbidden because it's one package deal, and since among that package there was isuri anah that he did that he cannot have anah from, he transported chavis of yayin nesach. Therefore, the whole earnings it's as one deal. And therefore, he cannot. It's also to have enough in the earnings. But if he told him each barrel that you transport, you're getting a prutim, and it says and we found one barrel to be of yayin nesach that he transported, his earnings he could keep as mutar, except for the one barrel which he transported of yayin nesach. A guy who rents a donkey from a yid to transport yayin nesach. The earnings are also. In fact, what do I need this Mishnah to tell us this? Hainu Reisha is exactly the same case as the Reisha, that you cannot have enough in the earnings of yayin nesach. And you want to say for Yitzchak, we need it for the sefer. That's the chiddush. Meaning that if the guy rented the chamer leishal to sit on it, to ride on it, even though the guy placed his jug of yayin nesach on the chamer, the earning, the rental, money the yid could keep because he rented it for riding, not for placing a jug. Does the Mishnah mean to say that it is not the renter's right to place a flask on this donkey because he only rented it for riding? What do you mean? I'll ask your kasha. One who rents a donkey for riding together with the driver, the renter could place his clothing, and his pitchers of drinks, and this is the food for the journey. Let's say it's 3 days for the 3-day journey. But anything additional to the days of the journey, the rider can hold him back. The driver could stop him. And the driver could place barley and grass and straw for the chamer to be able to eat. And the sustenance and the food for the driver for that day only. But for any additional days, the renter could stop him. Abai said, even though the renter has the schus to place his pitcher on the chamer that he rented, but if he does, so we're back to the kasher. You said that he has no right to place his jug of wine because he rented it only for riding. But we see when you rent for riding, it's also for the jug of wine for the guy to use it to place it on the chamer. So you see that he's allowed. Part of the rental includes putting a jug of yayin nesach. So how can you say he's allowed to keep the money? So Abaye says no. He rented it for riding. And also he could put his jugs there, but the main thing, the money is for the riding, and it comes with perks. But let's say if he says, I'm not using the perks, I'm not going to use my jug of wine to put on the chamer, or it's like you go to the airport, you pay for a ticket $500, and you have a suitcase that you're allowed to take of 70 pounds, And let's say you decide you're not taking the suitcase. Could you say, I want a deduction. I'm not taking my suitcase, so deduct $100. No, it doesn't work that way. You're paying for the ticket to ride the plane. So to here. Even though the Seich has the schus to place this jug of wine of Yain Esrav, if he wouldn't place it there, do we say that the Seich could say, I want to deduct because I'm not using the perk, I'm not bringing a pitcher? No. So the pitcher of wine has nothing to do with the schar, because he won't be able to deduct it if he doesn't bring the pitcher of wine or the jug of wine. Zakti mother, since now that the Bryce we brought down this Bryce, what is the case talking about? If it's talking about that where the provisions of buying food are available wherever he's going, so then the donkey driver should be able to prevent the renter from bringing food to burden the animal, putting more weight on the animal. And if it's an area where you cannot buy food, so then the renter shouldn't be able to hold back the driver from putting food on the animal for himself too. The case is talking about the shchiach lemitach that their food are available for one who's willing to trouble himself and go out of his way to buy it. So every day to go out of his way to buy the food. But he says a donkey driver, he knows his ways, so he doesn't have a problem with troubling himself and going to buy the food. But a renter, but a renter, it's not his way of troubling himself and looking for places to buy food for each night. So that's why a chamar, a driver, could only take for that day, because at night he'll be able to find other food, because it's the debt for him to trouble himself to go buy other food. But the renter, since it's not the debt for him to trouble himself, he's allowed to place food on the donkey for all the days of his journey. Avoda Rav Acha, Bnei Rav Eka, the father of Rav Acha, the son of Rav Eka, he would pour the wine into the canteens or the wineskins for the goyim, and would then go and transport it across the river, delivering them to the goyim, to the buyers. And instead of paying him money, they would give him these earthenware barrels in which the wine was originally there, from which he poured out the wine from. Also, people came and told Abaye about this, that what Rabbi Eka is doing, and he's being over on a Isser of Yain Esach. Abaye said to them, Ki katarich. Abaye said, Ki katarich, at the time when Rabbi Eka was doing the Maisa, when he was pouring the wine into the skins, in the I forgot what they call it. Okay, we call it the wine skins. But katarich. So he was doing it beheta, because the wine is not asa till it reaches the canteen at the bottom of the canteen, but he's finished his melacha while in midair, while he emptied out the barrel, while it's in midair, he already finished his melacha. He definitely wants that the wine, the wineskin should stay whole, with the meaning if the wineskin stayed whole, so the yain nesach should remain there. He definitely wants that. Why? The loynit started zikeh, so that the wineskin should not split, because which would, if it would split, would force him to use his barrels to save the wine. So he's reitze b'kiyumah. He wants the yain nesach. And the Gemara Masnim Ba'adayu, Rav Eka made a condition that he will not have to give them his barrel to save their wine if their wineskins plots. Inami, Or another teretz is the Maisi Prizdike Bahadayu, that the buyers would bring empty vessels with them for just in case if there's wineskin with plots, they would have a keli to replace it. So he wasn't worried about if the wineskins would plots. He didn't want it should stay whole. He didn't care. In fact, but when he transported the wine across the river, the Katarbi Surah, he was working with prohibited wine, with Isidik wine, which is Asr. And if you want to he would tell the owners of the ship to that they should that he said that they should do it, meaning that he was not considered to be. He didn't transport it. He said, "I'm not sure. I want you to transport it. It's not me." Inami, meaning again, Rav Eika would say to the Baal Hasvina from the beginning to take it for the buyers, and he didn't do it himself. He didn't do any malach with that yain shalisa. Inami, another teretz says the Nikite, but he had to show the sailors which ones he's not transporting, and they would do it. Inami, another one, the Nikite Beit Kiti, that the buyers held specially knot ropes, so which the Baal Hasvina knew themselves that they would transport it. It had nothing to do with. He didn't even show them. Rav Eika wouldn't even show them which ones to take over the water for free. Sagt the Mishnah, if Yain Hassan fell onto the grapes, then he should rinse them off with water, and then it's mutavim hayumavukas. But if the grapes were cracked and they absorbed the Yain Hassan, then it's asur. If it fell on the figs or on the dates, then the halacha is im yesh behen bin nois and tam. If there was enough that it gives off a taste, asur, it's forbidden to eat it. That brought dried figs in a boat, and a barrel of yain nesach had broken enough, and it fell on these dried figs. And they asked the Chacham, what should be the dim? He to know, and he was matir. So the Gemara is going to ask, here you're bringing a story that they were matir, the yain nesach that fell on the dried figs, and we just said that it's if there's a tam in it, it's also. So how do you bring a story to be seisa? The Gemara is going to ask it. This is the rule. Any that there's the Isa gives taste to the heter, then it's also. Meaning, and it gives a good taste. But if it doesn't give a good tam, a good taste, then mutter, it's going to be mutter. The guy chaymetz, like vinegar, that it had fallen on the split beans. So there, the taste of the chaymetz is poigim, the taste of the split beans, and therefore it's going to be mutter. In fact, you just said if it falls, the yain nesach falls on the figs and the dates, it's aser, and then you brought a story that says it's mutter. And you want to there's missing words in the Braisa, in the Mishnah, and this is how you have to learn it. It says, but if the wine was giving a bad taste into the food, mutter, then it's mutter. And where do you see if it gives a bad taste, it's going to be mutter? Maisanami. So it was a story where Baitzman said, maybe Gagaras B'Svina, that he brought dried figs in a boat, and a barrel of yain nesach had broken and had fallen on these dried figs. And the story came before the Chacham, and he was matir. He brings down there was this pile of wheat, which a barrel of yain nesach had spilled over it. Rava was matir to sell it to the goyim. Rabbi Bar Levi, yes, that Rabbi from the Braisa, Beged Shavlei Chut Shel Kilayim, a beged of Kilayim that was lost in, if a thread of Kilayim that was lost in a beged, and you can't tell which one it is. So you shouldn't sell it to a guy. Why? Because if you sell it to the guy might sell it to a yid, and the yid won't know that there's kalayim. And you should not make a saddle for chamer which has kalayim, because the yid might cut off a piece of the saddle to use it as a patch for his pants, and then he's going to be over on kalayim. You leave out the word mitzvah, but you can make tachrichim shrouds for a mace. Why? Because number one, no yid is going to touch it because it's hasbana. Number two, a mace could have it because it's not mechuyev mitzvahs. Why is it us to sell the beged to a guy? Surely because because he might come and sell it to a yid, and it'll cause a yid to be over on wearing beged kalayim. Hachanami so too in the case of yain nesach that had spilled over the chitim, since it's impossible to know that in the chitim there was wine, so you should ask selling it to a guy, because maybe asl is abunin, maybe the guy will sell it to Yisrael. So the Gemara says, it's a good question. But Rabbi retracted and he says it's mutter for the owner of the chitim to grind them and to bake them. Uzabuninu, and to sell it, this baked bread, to sell it to a goy, but not in front of a yid. So we shouldn't worry that if another yid sees it, and another yid sees it, he'll say, "Oh, a yid sold it to a goy, but it was baked by a yid, so I can buy from the goy." That's why we do a dak in a way he doesn't see the yid selling it. So Istam Yid will never go by a goy because of Pasakum.